Hey guys, before I start, the cap right there, that is Tony Stark, my boss. So he wanted me to wear this. What can I say? Great boss, love him, but a little demanding when it comes to stuff like that. But we're not talking, of course, about Iron Man, Tony Stark, or Marvel. We're talking about Rick Berman and Star Trek, specifically executive producer Rick Berman. Now, before we get any further here, I gotta say, my personal interactions with Rick was fine, always great. When I sold to Next Generation my scripts for Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, nothing but good things. We had great interactions. So let me get that out of the way. But when we're talking about Star Trek in terms of his being the executive producer, since 1987, well, he might have been maybe midline producer, but he was certainly a producer back in the 80s. And then we know subsequently through Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then Enterprise. Now, Enterprise was launched in 2001, lasted 4 seasons, the only Next Gen era show to only last 4 seasons. He created that with Brannon Braga, who was from Next Gen and Voyager. So, now you can argue, of course, that the very first time that Star Trek faltered was with Nemesis, the feature film, because Enterprise kept going. It went to 2005, where Nemesis was released in 2002. Great, but the Next Generation film that we got as Nemesis was not supposed to be the last Next Gen film. I did a video just yesterday talking about how Stewart Baird, the director that Rick Berman hired for the project, for Nemesis, was mostly at fault. I gotta say, I'm sort of rewriting and rethinking that because now I'm sort of laying more or most of the blame on Rick Berman. Why? Well, Rick hired Stewart Baird on the strength of Executive Decision. That's that great action film with Kurt Russell, with Steven Seagal, which I don't like to ruin movies, but I'll just say interesting choices. And that surprised everyone, that film. Did really well at the box office, and it was very well received by critics and fans. So Rick Berman hired Stewart Baird on the strength, and because he loved Executive Decision. In one of the interviews, I think he said, I wanted Stewart to bring a fresh blood and look and perspective to Nemesis, and that he did. As we know, Stewart Baird definitely did. Of course, it wasn't only maybe the fault of Mr. Baird's direction, but it was also, you could say, the story, the script. And Rick Berman co-wrote the story with John Logan, and then John Logan wrote the screenplay. So, why do I say more at fault for Rick? Well, he co-wrote the story. He hired Stewart Baird. But I think the most important and obvious and egregious failing, in regards with Rick Berman to Nemesis, was because when Stewart Baird was directing the film, prepping, obviously you don't just run on set one day, you prep. Hopefully you get to know the actors, everything about your project. They can last many weeks and even months on a film. So what I'm promoting here, and my premise is that Rick Berman knew that Stewart Baird was not prepared. He was completely reluctant and or unable, or just said fuck it to knowing these characters. The biggie, of course, LeVar Burton called him the alien, and continually called him Laverne. Fucked up his name, both names, his character and his real name, with LeVar Burton. So this speaks to me of someone who is not prepared, doesn't want to be prepared. In interviews, Stewart Baird said, I want to bring a fresh approach in action. And he was particularly proud of the car chase, the dune buggy, which I do kind of like, even though it's silly. It sort of doesn't make sense. In, the Star Trek, hundreds of years in the future, we're going to still use a dune buggy. Aside from the fact that Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, Captain Picard, wants to ride it and drive it. But again, the bottom line in my thinking now is that people can lay the blame on the director, and you kind of got to in a lot of films. Of course, they're the big cheese and boss in the end. But Rick Berman, since 1987, shepherding, co-creating Deep Space Nine and Voyager, the showrunner and executive producer for most of the next gen, TNG next gen era shows, hired Stewart Baird, and we know what happened. Enterprise kind of sputtered along for 4 years, and then there was this huge, dry spell with Star Trek. So, what do you think? Does the main boss, the main, calling the shots, guy or gal, are they responsible mostly for the product and for the ultimate, reception from fans and critics and box office? I think so, right? There you go. So, comment away. Leave some comments, leave your thoughts, and hope you're subscribing. Hope you're enjoying. See you soon.